Well, guys, it's hard to believe. It's time. It's time. You've been up here almost 6 months. We've learned everything from you we could possibly learn, and now it's time to say goodbye. We don't want to see you go. We like the company. We love the friendship, and like we said the other night, you know, we're like brothers, and we've lived together, closer than families, in many ways. So thank you very much, and we wish you, all the best in the hours ahead, and soft landing. And we cannot wait to see your faces back on Earth.
Спасибо, Майкл. Спасибо, ребята. 6 месяцев пролетело очень быстро, и сейчас даже грустно, скажу так, вот как будто из родного дома куда-то уезжаешь. Уже настолько привыкли, настолько прижились. Ну и, конечно, мало времени для того, чтобы все сказать, но вы сами все видите, сами все знаете, сами все прекрасно понимаете. Я хочу еще раз сказать вам большое спасибо за то, что вы всегда находили нужные слова, за то, что всегда могли в любой момент прийти на помощь. И мы жили единым целым настоящим коллективом. Вот нигде, как на станции, нельзя понять, что такое здоровый, хороший коллектив, здоровый организм. А мы единое целое. Спасибо, Майк, ты здорово сказал. Мы родственники и братья. Хоть наши семьи сейчас к нам будут ближе. Спасибо, хлопцы.
Time to hug each other. We're not going to hug each other. We're going to
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Я еще, конечно, обниму вас перед этим. Так,
еще там перед Рон, давай, Майк.
До свидания, брат. До свидания. Давай. Всего хорошего.
Okay.
See ya. Yeah. See you, man.
See you in a couple months.
Пока!
Okay.
Майк Ю Квотерс, бай-бай!
Okay. Head to the hatches.
Андрей. Порционное давление кислорода.
CPO2 is 144 at this time.
Долго будет дуть.
Okay, it's going to take a while.
And Houston Station, Mike on one. Приступаем к проверке герметичности переходных люков.
Okay, now proceed to the leak check for the transfer hatches.
Departure farewells here in the lab. That tape came down successfully.
Yes, it did, and we really appreciated it, and it was very, very nice.
Okay, great. We'll put that tape in the reuse bag then.
Okay, sounds good.
Again, you're looking at video that was recorded just a few minutes ago by Sergei Volkov, who remains on board the International Space Station with Mike Fossum and Satoshi Furukawa, as Sama Kutiayev, the Soyuz commander, on the right, Ron Garan in the middle, Batasenka on the left. One final opportunity to say goodbye to their colleagues before the hatches were closed at 4:30 p.m. Central Time about 10 minutes ago in the first step leading to the undocking of the Soyuz that will take place just under 3 hours from now at 7:38 p.m. Central Time. Samakutiaev there wiping down the outer ring to the hatch between the Soyuz spacecraft and the Poisk module to make sure no particles of debris are present that could interfere with a clean undocking of the Soyuz spacecraft.
The off-nominal situations book is prepared. Okay. Let's go ahead and start then and continue talking to us, please. Okay. The KVD is in the closed position. KKT valve is being put in the open position. Install the KKD to the open position. The KVD is closed. Moving, translating to the SR. Closing the SABO hatch. The SABO hatch open indicator is off.
Люк закрыт.
Hatch is closed.
Скафандр. Андрей, запиши давление БО.
Andrei, please write down the bow pressure. 846 millimeters. MCC Moscow, the SABO hatch is closed. The LED is not on. And we wrote down the pressure.
And with a final wave, the hatch was closed again at 4:30 p.m. Central Time.
The KVD bow S2 indicator S4 is not eliminated. And we have at 38:15 physical separation.
Undocking confirmed at 7:38 p.m. Central Time.
Very good flight. And watching the bracket.
Undocking occurring over northern China at 7:38 p.m. Central Time.
Honey, space station, you look great backing away, guys. It's been great sharing space with you. Safe journey and soft landing, my friends. Godspeed from the International Space Station.
Stay on the ground, Mike. Есть выбор ДПО-Б?
ДПО-Б selection.
Yes.
Common GSO. Waiting for the next ДПО. GSO 1 never disappeared. Very good, very clear.
Final farewell words from Space Station Commander Mike Fossum, wishing the crew on board the Soyuz TMA-21 a soft landing and Godspeed.
To the ground. Yes, that's the ground. The Earth.
1 minute away from a separation burn that will be initiated by Soyuz Commander Alexander Samakutiaev to increase the opening rate from the International Space Station. looking right down the barrel of the Poisk module to which this Soyuz was attached since April 7th. This is the same docking port to which Dan Burbank, Anatoly Ivanishin, and Anton Shkaplerov will dock to on November 16th.
Since the indicator turned off, internal conversation.
Я спрашиваю, я говорю, что
I'm saying that it's not at 4:40. We were waiting for the physical separation. It was less. We have DPO activation. We are watching DPO activation. And the time, we can feel
separation burn now in effect, a 15-second burn of the Soyuz engines. This increases the opening rate to the point at which the deorbit burn will be conducted at 10:05 p.m. Central Time tonight, as the Soyuz will move to a distance of 12 kilometers away from the International Space Station. With the undocking of this vehicle, Expedition 29 has now officially begun under the command of Mike Fossum, along with Sergei Volkov and Satoshi Furukawa.
По вашей команде выдадим ОДР.
A bit lighter. We need a little bit lighter.
And you can see in this view as it darts back and forth amongst the clouds over the Pacific Ocean, you can see the Soyuz TMA-21 spacecraft as it continues an opening rate from the International Space Station, eventually to be at a position some 12 kilometers away from the station for the deorbit burn that is scheduled 2 hours, 4 minutes from now.
or should I do it later?
And we now have video from the landing site on a bright sunny day with temperatures in the mid-60s as the crew is now in the process of being extracted. Again, the Soyuz landed on its side. That should be the commander of the Soyuz, Alexander Samokutyaev. Yes, indeed it is. Being helped out by his flight surgeon and other support personnel from RSC Energia. Josh, it appeared to be almost a bullseye landing for the Soyuz. We were told that the first helicopters landed almost not quite 2 minutes after the Soyuz itself touched down. So that would tend to enhance the swift extraction from the crew as we await further reports from you on that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, you know, you've done this quite a number of times, and a lot of people don't realize what these helicopters do is they sort of arrive at the targeted area and hover for a bit until they get a confirmation of exactly where the Soyuz has landed. But we actually did not hover at all today. We came straight into the landing site. About 4 of the helicopters had already landed in front of us. The medical tent was already being put up as we got here. Which was sort of an indication of how on target today's landing actually was. But they have gone ahead and gotten the parachute torn down, and it looks like they're pulling out yet another crew member as we watch.
And that would be Ron Garan flashing a big smile as he's extracted. And we mentioned before, Josh, that sometimes landing on its side would tend to slow down the extraction of the crew a bit, as opposed to back in May when Dmitry Kondratiev, Katie Coleman, and Paolo Nespoli landed upright and were extracted in the preferred manner. We can see Dr. Steve Gilmore there, one of the flight surgeons, but Ron Garan looks to be in good shape.
Yeah, you're exactly right. When these Soyuzes land on their side, of course, no one can predict exactly how they're going to roll. And anyone that has ever seen inside a Soyuz knows that it is very tight quarters, that the crew members sometimes are basically shoulder to shoulder right on top of each other. So depending on how the Soyuz ends up, it's a little hard sometimes to get them out. So it takes just a few minutes to really get everybody unstrapped. Of course, they want to make sure they do it in a delicate manner to make sure that the crew members aren't, falling on top of each other as they get out. But they're continuing to make good progress, considering that they've already got 2 crew members out, and this thing landed, 20, 25 minutes ago. It's quite impressive.
And never shy of ceremonial trappings, we're looking at a picture of the great designer Sergei Korolyov and Yuri Gagarin that was carried inside the capsule itself. Of course, this spacecraft was dubbed Gagarin prior to its launch back on April 5th, just a week shy of the launching of Yuri Gagarin as the first human in space. A good view now of Ron Garan. He looks to be in very good shape, smiling broadly, and you probably have a better view than we do, Josh. What are you seeing?
Now, he looks to be in great shape. It's always amazing to see these astronauts and cosmonauts come back to Earth after being up there for 6 months. And, I think it says a lot about how the International Space Station program and our international partners have worked to keep these crew members in shape while they're up there on orbit. I think quite a bit has been learned about how the human body reacts to being up there for that long. And you can see how well these crew members now come back to Earth and how well they feel. You can see that some of those precautions and those efforts that we take with our crew members are working.
And Josh, as you're speaking, Andrei Barasenko now in his reclining chair. So all 3 crew members are out of the Soyuz, appearing to be in very good shape. And we'll be watching the television as it becomes available to us, as the crew members have an opportunity to spend a few minutes beginning the adaptation to a gravity environment for the first time in 5.5 months. They'll be carried into the medical tent. And if you could offer a few thoughts, Josh, down there at the landing site as to what takes place once the crew gets in the medical tent, and what then lies ahead as they make their way back to Karaganda.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you mentioned it, because typically this medical tent is set up about 100 yards away. Today, this medical tent is no more than probably 30 yards away from where the Soyuz landed, so it's not going to be a very long trip, as these crew members probably within the next few minutes will be lifted up in their chairs and moved over to the medical tent. That is where the flight doctors will do sort of an eyeball exam of exactly how the crew members are doing to make sure that they're feeling okay. And then they will go through the process of taking off their launch and entry suits, which takes a few minutes. They'll put on some more comfortable clothes, and then they will each go to their individual helicopters. They're sitting just a few yards away. And all of us will fly back to the city of Karaganda about 2 hours, which is where the welcome ceremony will take place. So all these procedures here on the ground are continuing as all this ground personnel get these crew members set up and welcome them back to Earth.
Well, it was a textbook evening in terms of all of the activities, the crews saying farewell to one another up on orbit, the undocking of this Soyuz spacecraft several hours ago, and of course the deorbit burn and all the activities associated with the module separation, the deployment of the parachutes. We actually were devoid of audible communications between the crew and mission control in Korolyov outside of Moscow. However, we were fortunate enough to be receiving reports from the visiting vehicle officer here in Mission Control, Josh, who was in touch with the Russian ballistics personnel, and ultimately heard that everything was going by the book, and that two-way communications had been established with the crew during the final minutes of their descent back to Earth. And let's go back to Josh Byerly at the landing site. Josh, the crew entering the medical tent, as we can see.
Oh, yeah, they're, like we talked about, they've gotten aware this is just a very systematic process, so they've already moved them in there, and as you talked about, they'll start getting more comfortable. This medical tent really is quite closer today than it typically is, so it wasn't a very far walk for them to go over there, but Joel Montalbano, who is our Director of Operations over here in Russia, is moving over toward the capsule. As I'm watching him, he has a long list of inventory items that he's going to retrieve.
We're now seeing replays of the Soyuz landing. Again, these views captured by television cameras aboard the closest search and recovery helicopters in the vicinity of the landing site. You can see how close the Soyuz landed to a bullseye target, basically. The first all-terrain vehicles already at the spacecraft within seconds after touchdown. One of the spacecraft technicians from RSC Energia wiping down the hatch at the very top of the Soyuz spacecraft prior to the time that it was opened to begin the extraction process, the Soyuz having landed on its side.
Саша, Б-12 выдайте, Петр 12, Б-12 выдайте. Извини, Петр 12. И сейчас вас чуть-чуть кантанем, Саш. Да, и сейчас это. Народа навалились, держи. Давай книжки, что там у тебя?
Again, you're watching a replay of the initial opening of the hatch that took place a short time ago, as the search and recovery teams and RSC Energia technicians began the process of extracting the crew from the descent module of the Soyuz TMA-21 spacecraft. You can see peering inside the hatchway how cramped the quarters are. However, the Soyuz landed uneventfully. An excellent view in this replay of the soft landing engines firing just a split second before touchdown to help buffer the initial impact of the landing under the main chute of the Soyuz, and one of the Russian Mi-8 helicopters landing within seconds thereafter to begin the process of the recovery of the crew.